canción para mi gente, con una pasión tan fuerte. Ay, 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 ahora sigo cantando y sigo gozando, yo sigo cantando y sigo gozando.
Ahí está. A los señores charros, por favor, de la manera más amable, desalojar por ahí o a la esquina de la manga de lienzo para que puedan disquearlo y esté de maravilla para que puedan charrear a gusto.
This is a Mexican rodeo, or as it's called in Mexico, a charrería. On the surface, it has many similarities to the American rodeo, but in reality it carries with it a deep cultural heritage that's nearly impossible to fully grasp until you experience it firsthand. In Elm City, North Carolina, we sat down to talk with Pedro Torres to give us a history on the Mexican rodeo.
And Charreria originated from the haciendas back when all the ranches used to run cattle together before fences, and they would gather their cattle. All the local ranches would all pitch in together and they would identify and mark their cattle. But with the progression of fences, people selling land, and progress, everything was being confined down to a smaller plot. The cowboys or the charros at the time were not able to have this gathering twice a year like they were doing in the spring and fall, so they got together and said, hey, let's start having these local competitions.
And so as horses began to run less and less wild and free, the local charros, or cowboys, began to create competition events. The events were based on the roping and branding processes passed down from an older way of life. Tests of skill that sought to preserve this rich cultural heritage. It wasn't long before these competitions started gaining in popularity. Heroic images of a mounted charro, akin to the lone cowboys of America, became more and more common as the cultural phenomenon began to spread. In fact, the Charreria held such a preservation of heritage that it was declared the national sport of Mexico in 1933, right on the heels of the Mexican Revolutionary War. The Charreria today is a big event. It's a way for people to come together. It's a way for parents to pass traditions along to their kids. It's a time to eat, to gather, to laugh, and to enjoy the outdoors.
So the Charreria is actually very important to me in the fact that it's culture. It's the national sport by excellence from Mexico. Everybody thinks that it's soccer, and it's not. But when you go back to the roots of how Mexico got started, the Spanish brought cattle to us, and so culturally, I was born to be around cattle. My family has been doing it for several years. My granddaddy was always a horseman, but it's just who we are.
Y ya teníamos a los tres equipos formados a la escaramuza guadalupana. Vamos a irnos con la oración del charro, para lo cual le pido a los caballeros descubrirse una pequeña oración para irnos con esta primer competencia y que todo nos salga bien. Las damas no se tienen que descubrir, solamente los charros y los caballeros.
The Charreria begins with a prayer, paying homage to the traditions passed down from generations ago. While less of a religious prayer and more of a mantra, the prayer is a plea for good fortunes as the charro rides into the arena.
Señor, a tus pies estoy postrado. Vengo vestido de charro y a mi lado está conmigo mi caballo, mi soga y mi sombrero. Vengo a pedirte, Señor, que me acompañes en todas y cada una de mis suertes charras. Y así como te pido por el diario cabalgar de nuestras vidas, así te pido, Señor, que hoy tú vengas a cabalgar conmigo.
Teams line up and ride into the arena, accompanied by the traditional song Marcha Zacatecas. The song is a long tradition of charros. It points back to a time when charros were called in to join the Mexican army as reinforcements.
Charreria, you have the reining, the piales, coleadero. You have la monta de toro, which is the bull riding, and then you have the terna, which is the oldest event, which is goes back to the branding. You have the bronc ride. You have to rope the mare by the front feet, and then you have to leap to death.
The first event is the Cala de Caballo, or the reining. Of all the events, the reining is the most elaborate. Charros are scored on their ability to showcase a horse's full range of skills. All of this is part of the scoring, and this test of skill points back to when charros had to rein in some of the more stubborn horses for branding. The piales en lienzo, or the heeling, comes next. The rider throws a lasso and tries to catch a horse by its hind legs. The quicker he can bind the horse, the more points are given. In the coladero, or steel-tailing, the charro rides next to a bull, grabs it by the tail and wraps it under his leg, and attempts to bring the bull down gently. The montatoro is similar to the bull riding in the American Rodeo. The rider's goal is to stay on until the bull stops bucking. Once the bull stops, he tries to dismount and land on his feet. Next comes the terna, or the team roping, where a team of 3 rope a bull together. One ropes the neck, one ropes the hind legs, and the third ties the bull's feet together. All this must happen in a 6-minute time limit. The jineteo de yegua, or bronc riding, is like the bull riding, but instead of a bull, riders must stay on a bucking, untrained mare. In the manganas a caballo, a mounted charro has 3 opportunities to rope a mare by its front legs. El paso de la muerte, the leap of death. A bareback rider attempts to jump from his own horse onto another bareback horse. But this time, the second horse is unbroken, and he must be ridden until it stops bucking. By far, this is the most dangerous event of the Charreria.
The Mexican Rodeo actually, it didn't take roots till after the Revolutionary War, and the ladies would ride alongside the men, and they were actually a decoy for the men in the war. So they would ride one way, the men would ride the other, and the ladies would go first to set tracks that were going in the wrong direction. They decided to incorporate the ladies by building a drill team because their job in the Revolutionary War was to ride in opposite directions and distract the opponents. They composed a drill team that's made anywhere from 6 to 12. We've seen patterns, teams that have as many as 20 riders on them. And they have to actually execute a set of maneuvers, and they're only allowed to ride side saddle, and they have to wear, elegant dresses.
Vámonos adelante, segundo escaramuza. Y viene Melissa Zamorano, Viviana Gamboa, Valeria Gamboa y Jessica Medrano. Ahora que la capitana nos dé la orden que estén listas para hacer su ejercicio.
To call the escaramuza a drill team event is too humble a phrase. To put it more accurately, the escaramuza is an unfathomable work of art. Teams upwards of 8 or even 20 women eloquently perform a series of choreographed maneuvers, all involving synchronized formations that intricately weave through one another. If the men's events represent the strength and power of horses and cattle, the escaramuza brings balance by showcasing the elegance and the stunning beauty of these free and wild creatures. As the team flawlessly executes the performance, it's hard not to be overwhelmed by the grandeur and excellence of the spectacle.
I feel like for all, mostly Hispanic people, we all can relate because we come from the same background. So it kind of brings all of us together. Culturally is important to us, to educate not only the younger generation, but everybody that has any interest in it. because it is the roots of American Rodeo. You know, we're trying to do it in a way that people understand that there's a meaning behind every event. It's not just a bunch of people going crazy chasing horses and cattle. I really enjoy this sport because it brings a whole community together that can relate and be able to socialize and connect with different people, and learn from each other. Because I like to be able to go somewhere and people actually want to see you and talk to you. I have been many places where nobody really cares who you are and what you're doing there. You know, and that makes a world of difference, you know, to be able to go somewhere and people actually care, you know, to see you and shake your hand and make you laugh and, you know, cheer you on and that kind of stuff. So that's always a plus.
Like in any event, the joy in the Charreria comes not just from the horses or the score or the sport itself. Rather, the event provides a way for authentic community to take place, a way for people to bond over shared traditions, and a way to pass on a piece of legacy to a younger generation.